Howdy, everybody. Welcome back from the nice little New Year's break we took. I'm here today. We got GhostKumo, as always. You know, we have our rotating co-host. How you doing, GK?
Doing all right.
And our guest for the week, we have Mulsqi, who is a Persona speedrunner. You've also done stuff like Bomberman. I've seen you do Twilight Princess. You do a lot of other random SMT speedruns. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I've been quite a long time runner of some of the Persona games, done some Kyoyaku Megami Tensei and non-Megami Tensei related things, like Ghoul said, Bomberman, Twilight Princess, and Castlevania Legacy of Darkness.
All right, I forgot about Legacy of Darkness. You've definitely done quite a few of that as well. Why? It's a pretty eclectic mix of games, just like a random couple N64 games, and then a Zelda, and then a bunch of like 7 to 10 hour RPGs. What's the logic there?
The logic is that N64 was the system of my childhood. That's pretty much what we had, so I played it a ton. I like N64 games. That's the reason why I run Bomberman 64, because I just love that game so much. And Zelda Twilight Princess, that's just my favorite game from my favorite series, and I like the speedrun. It's a nice mix of tricks and glitches and playing the game normally. So yeah, that's the reason for that, and honestly don't know what made me run Persona. Still a mystery to me.
All right. Yeah, so we figured with Reload comes out next weekend, I thought it'd be kind of fun to bring on somebody who you've literally run, I think, every Persona at this point. You've done... I know you've done one, right? Or at least
Persona 1, Snow Queen Quest, 2, Innocent Sin, or any percent, Persona 3 Portable, lots of categories, Persona 4 Golden, lots of categories, Persona 5, 1 hard true ending run. And of course, then there's the best Persona 3 dancing not all night. What's the game called?
You did 4 Dancing All Night, right? You did the one run of that, and then Dancing Moon Night is Persona 3.
Yeah, it's Dancing in Moonlight. Yeah.
That feels like a kind of silly one to do once in a while, because I mean that's a rhythm game, isn't it?
Believe it or don't, that game actually has interesting routing going on.
What?
I love when those sorts of games just randomly have actually interesting speed tech here and there, because you never think it.
The run is from start of the game to start of the credits, and how you get to the credits is you have to watch for the social link events, and you will trigger those with reaching this much combo, this many perfects, you wear this many costumes and accessories, this many brilliance, etc. So there's actual routing going on in there, and it's actually optimal to play on hard mode because you have more notes, you get more combo, you get more perfect
combos. No way.
It's a great meme.
That's actually great.
Oh,
I'm just looking at the speedrun leaderboard of Dancing All Night, and I kind of wish we had the GIF of you just dancing in the specialist.
So wait,
just on screen.
Do you redo the same songs over and over again because it'll have more notes? Is it optimal to do different songs?
The route is playing through the entire set list. You only repeat the opening movie because it's the shortest song, and Burn My Dread once because you can get 8 costumes in that song and plenty of accessories. Other than that, it's no repeats at all.
I mean, that's nice at least. Sorry, I did not expect that to be as funny as it was. So yeah, let's dive in on Persona. You said you don't know why, but seriously, why? What is it that drew you to... The first one you did was 4 Golden, and that first run was what, like almost 10 hours?
It was 11 hours and 36 minutes.
Everyone's come a long way now. What brought you to running Persona 4 Golden of every single game out there after doing... I mean, Bomberman is like an hour for 100%. Zelda is like you could do 100% in I think it's 5 to 6 hours.
It's like 6.5 now.
And then it's like no. We're doing almost double that.
I started speedrunning in 2014. That's when I did my first Twilight Princess run, and at the time I had already beaten Golden, gotten the Platinum Trophy, and around 2014-ish, Neviats was actually running the PlayStation 2 version of the game, and I'm new to speedrunning, I like this game, let's give this a go, without any thinking what I'd get myself into, routing-wise, etc.
Oh, no.
Just completely naive to it. Just hop in, try to imitate the PS2 run to the best of my abilities, which doesn't work well, just gonna say right now. But
I'd say they're very, very different speedruns as well, so that doesn't help things either. 'Cause I remember I was actually doing the same thing at the time, and I had the original PS2 notes to work off of, and even that was completely different. And then you had a bunch of ideas that you were already doing by the time I actually even knew you were messing with the game. That just stuff we still do today in the run. Things like, okay, we're going to do most of our grinding here, and we're going to do it by doing this. Obviously, those early runs looked completely different. Like the fusion count was like 100-ish in the earlier runs.
It wasn't that high, but it was like 40 to 50. We are going up less than 30 nowadays, I think so.
Yeah, which is obviously a lot faster by a little bit. And then ever since then, you've done. I think you did 3 portable next a bit.
Yeah, it was followed by 3 portable. Yeah, the next year after I did the P4G run in 2015.
And then from there, it's just been kind of all over the place. So yeah, let's dive in a little bit on that. So what went into making? Because like you said, you adapted kind of the PS2 route into the Golden, even though it was putting a bit of a round peg in a square hole. What did that process look like?
Well, like you said, you had access to the notes. I didn't, so it initially was just me going through Deviats's some BB and taking notes on what to do. And once that was kind of done, a reminder, never played in Japanese. I don't know Japanese at that point, at least. So it was kind of fun trying to figure out, all right, what is this guy inheriting with the personas? But got through that and then started playing it in game. You can get through Yukiko's castle mostly fine with the fighting normal enemies. They're not that bad of an experience source there. But once you get to the steamy bathhouse, what the PS2 run does is it just goes straight to the mini-boss. And thanks to the PS2 version's EXP scaling, they gain a ton of levels. Unfortunately, Golden doesn't have EXP scaling, so we get nothing. Thank you, goodbye. So that's where the first major problem came in, and I think it's around there where the idea of let's just kill golden hands came from, because they're good source of XP and easy to kill.
Yeah, that's definitely that was a pretty big change, between the two games, obviously. And for those that don't know, the EXP scaling that Mul's referring to in original Persona 4 Golden, when you would fight bosses, if you were significantly underleveled, the game would multiply your EXP based on how underleveled you were relative to that point in the game. It's a catch-up EXP system. And Persona 4 Golden just completely, for some reason, nobody knows why, it's the only one that does this, does not have that system at all. I believe every other Persona game that I know of has catch-up EXP. Persona 4 Golden has none of it.
Persona 2 definitely doesn't. It's just the set XP from bosses. Persona 2 actually has the same XP system from Golden, where bosses have the set XP, and it's just divided between living party members.
So strange. Especially because, is that true for Eternal Punishment, like the PS1 version, or is that something that's exclusive to the PSP one?
It's for all versions of Persona 2. It doesn't matter if it's Innocent Sin or Eternal Punishment.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, and it's also weird because like they reworked the experience in Persona 4 because it worked like that in the original PS2 version. Then they did that in the Vita version. They like reworked all the EXP, and then they released 5 where they went back to Persona 4's EXP system for some reason. It's really,
Atlas
really
isn't known for their consistency.
That is true. What does Hama do exactly? Who knows? What game are you playing?
So something I'm actually kind of curious about. So I imagine some of this has to do with just being a fan of the games casually, but Persona games, they kind of feel almost antithetical to speedrunning because like a lot of the aspects of the game are the, little social sim elements, the making your friends and hanging out with them and going through their stories, and then the way that that kind of affects, your stats. Whereas in the speedrun, you're kind of skipping through a lot of the calendar and focusing mainly on the dungeons. I like one of the things I know that's big in the route of a lot of these games is your allies actually do less and less as the game goes on. What is it that kind of like drew you to wanting to speedrun these sorts of games, despite, completely bypassing one of the significant elements of the game that, probably is what caused it to get its niche?
I think it was just finding the actual battle strategies interesting, because when you look at the PS2 version of the run, there's a lot of reflect damage being done. There was just the odd battle strategies that I kind of didn't care about the social linking side. It was just the necessary evil. I wanted to do the battle things.
So you're more the gameplay focused on Persona games, even when you're playing them casually, versus the story and the kind of the life simulator elements. Then,
yeah, even if I play one of the games casually nowadays, I tend to kind of fast forward the dialogue because I just want to play the game, man.
That's fair. There's a lot of dialogue in the games.
Yeah.
I know, like my casual playthrough of Persona 5, as somebody that like obviously knows the games and combat systems pretty well, still took me like 110 hours to get through, like by the in-game save file. So, it's definitely there's a lot going on in those games. We'll put it that way.
But I should note that I do enjoy the time management with the social linking, trying to optimize getting them done. I probably wouldn't play the games if I didn't enjoy that, but it's just not something that I feel is necessary for the speedrun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Especially
mean,
on
obviously,
replays, like if you're playing through the game multiple times, you've seen, I'm sure, every social link to its conclusion at some point or another. So it's not like you haven't experienced that. You're not like, well, I like the combat in the game and don't care for everything else. It's probably more so of a, I've seen these before, I don't need to see them again. The thing that actually has a lot of replay value for you would be the actual combat and the decisions made there. So
something like it is kind of funny you mentioned like optimizing that stuff out, because that's kind of one of the things that I noticed when I played Persona 5, but especially Royal, because like when I played Royal in 2022, I mean, I'd already been a speedrunner for basically 6 years, and it is kind of funny like developing sort of an optimization mindset as a speedrunner and then like applying that to even games that I play casually, and I'm just like playing the game and I'm like, I want to get all these things as optimally as possible. Like I had known from, in P5, for example, I'd known from my first playthrough that, upping fortune early on is good if you want to accelerate upping all the other ones, and I ended up getting all of the social links like done as quickly in the playthrough as I could, to where I was like, what do I do in my December?
Yeah,
like I straight up was just spamming the gym in the last month of my playthrough of Royal.
Yeah, my first playthrough of Royal was also at the end of December. Well, I have every link maxed. What do I do in the third section of the game?
That's kind of easier, like every Persona game. I remember, if I remember correctly, like the original Persona 3, you have like with an optimized route, I think you have like 2 weeks or like a week and a half of like free time if you like did everything as quickly as you can. And then,
Isn't it like a day or two free time with the original P3? Like it's incredibly tight.
And then
Yeah,
now
I
it's
know.
like you have a month and a half.
I know Fess is like you have around 2 weeks if you do everything about optimally. Although Fess has, it has a few things that make them go by quicker, but it also has the Eon social link. I'm gonna be sad if Reload doesn't have the Eon social link. I love my girl Aegis.
I wanna say they've confirmed that Aegis is the social link in.
I guess while we're on this, have you looked? I haven't actually watched much of the Reload stuff outside of just like the announcement trailer and a couple little things. Have you been kind of following it a bit? Like, do we know how much of the game do we know about?
I've only watched the major trailers that Atlas has released, but not the character videos, etc. I haven't really read up on it. I do know that some stores broke the street date and the game is already in some people's hands, so if you're into the leaked stuff, I'm sure you can find them, but it's not really something I'm interested in looking up. I kind of want to play the game semi-blind as I can be, having played FES.
I say, and for people that don't know, Atlas's marketing systems are like pretty consistent at this point, where like they'll announce a game, it'll kind of go radio silent for a bit, and then about 2 months before release, you'll get like almost a daily video of like stuff about the game. So they've been doing that for Persona 3 for a while now. They've been a little bit less than normal. Like they're not like every day here's a new Persona or Demon like they did for like SMT 5, but there's still, if you like look at like Atlas's Japanese YouTube, there's a lot of videos on the game already. So I'm sure there's probably a lot of details that are out there, just stuff that I haven't looked at. So, or personally. Or personally, I guess is the case.
Oh
maybe.
my goodness, cool. I was hoping we'd go without any of those puns.
It was too free. I'm sorry. So,
on the subject of 3, so Persona 3, as far as I understand it, has a really fascinating speedrun history. Because if you look at the proper beat the game strat for the original Persona 3, it's something like 19 hours for world record. It used to be like a full day commitment, whereas like Portable is went down to under 9, and then with the remaster it's under 7 on the leaderboards. Kind of what one thing I'd be obviously interested in is what makes those two games have such a huge discrepancy in time, because like Persona 4 had a pretty big one, but 3 has an even bigger one.
Okay, so the PS2 version of P3 actually has proper cutscenes. It takes place in this 3D world and the characters move, etc., whereas Persona 3 Portable is essentially a visual novel. It's all told through text, basically, and you can skip through the text much, much faster than in Persona 3 FES. And FES is kind of a weird case because in battles you get less experience. The battle system is actually different. P3P uses Persona 4 battle system, and that's highly advantageous for P3P. And with the newest releases, they can go up to 120 frames per second, and for whatever reason, Atlas has managed to tie the text skipping speed to the frame rate. Like, how even?
What? Why?
We don't know.
I think that's actually fairly common for games that run frame rates over 60. Because I remember there was a game that I ran that was made on like XNA, and nobody has run the game on a monitor above 60 hertz, but somebody brought it to Limit Break in the practice room, and we had a monitor at 120 hertz, and we were like, yeah, we would just destroy record if we were running this game at that frame rate because of just how instantaneous skips are in that game. So I could definitely see that.
So a couple other things I know that like cause big differences. I believe Fest doesn't even have fast travel. Like there's no menu to just like skip from area to area. You have to like run from place to place.
Yeah, it doesn't have that. It has that one character in the classroom that you can talk to that brings you to the world map menu, but that's about it really.
So like that's another like minor time save. Well, not even minor. That's still quite a bit.
It's actually pretty massive.
Yeah. Like you said, the text speed becomes faster, which even though like the Persona 4, I mean, although Persona 4 to Golden is a pretty massive drop as well. Not quite as long, but
you have the fast forward in that.
Yeah, we have the cutscene fast forward, but that's not that different than cutting out all animations and being able to match through text either, I imagine. So, but
it's pretty massive for Golden as well, because with the old PC version, it was faster than Vita, and then the 2023 remaster patch dropped, and that alone saves like 40 minutes just from faster fast forwarding for whatever reason.
I haven't dabbled as much with the re-release on PC, so I'll have to do that at some point. So I guess obviously these games have changed a lot. You know, we talked about how originally these were being run on like the Vita hardware for portable in. It generally is run on that. You could run it on a PSP as well, but now they're all run on PC. Has that changed anything with the run as far as like, oh, this is like something you can do only on the PC version, or this is something that only worked on the original version, or have they actually been relatively similar games with the different versions?
Yeah, when it comes to portable, they're mostly the same, except that in portable, you can actually skip Tartarus pauses if you pause the game frame perfectly and move between every pause. You can just walk past the boss trigger and that way skipping the boss. Similar to what the Dragon Quest VIII on PS2 can do, just menu buffer through boss triggers. However, they've raised the frame rate to 60 minimum in the remaster releases for consoles, so that's pretty much something that the portable run cannot do there anymore, or if it can, if it's way harder. PC, on the other hand, can lower back to 30 FPS and also use turbo, so it pretty much has easier time even skipping the bosses there again. So that's kind of the major difference. Other than that, they play the same. Well, I suppose the Maniac difficulty does have a 20% EXP reduction, so Maniac actually requires a reroute because of that.
20% EXP reduction on PC versus on console?
The remaster releases, the 2023 releases, compared to PlayStation Portable. So 20% doesn't sound that much, but it's actually a pretty big deal. We're often lower level than what we want to be, so we have to do extra things, stuff like that.
Especially because, if I remember correctly, Maniacs also is like compendium prices are significantly more expensive.
Yeah, they're 4 times the amount of normal.
Which I used to always joke that in SMT games, money is like more valuable than EXP at sometimes, just because of how like strong fusing demons is, and then rebuying those same demons back to refuse them again. So that's just like so ridiculous. The like saying, "Oh yeah, no, it's not like they're doubled or up 50%. No, it's just 4 times." What? Wow.
Yeah, they just slap a 4 times multiplier in there. I don't know if they really tested that or anything, because the prices get ridiculous really quickly. It's not like SMT where you can get into fights and, oh, there's my demon, I'll just talk to it and get it for free. No, we have shuffle time and it's all random what we're getting.
Good old shuffle time. So you say all random, but actually kind of something I wanted to talk about was, so I understand that Persona 4 actually the remake, Golden specifically, developed RNG manipulation. How about did that go? How did that exactly come about? And then how significant is that in the run for people who are a little less familiar with the run itself?
So the way I stumbled upon it, I was practicing a Void quest on how to fight the Golden Hand, divide the experience, etc. And I kept closing the game and, oh hey, a Golden Hand, neat. Close the game, oh hey, a Golden Hand, neat. And that went on for a little while, and then it just wait. This is not a coincidence anymore. It's actually because I closed the game and then I post that in the Discord and being like, hey, does this happen to anyone else? And some other people tested, and yep, that's a thing. So that's kind of how we found out that, hey, we can do some sort of manipulations. So the first kind of Gold Hand manips were more of just being able to force the spawn. So what the route changed was we basically just bought more go-homes. But the bigger one came when Dark Kefka did his own routing, and he actually figured out that we can also manipulate chest contents. And he manipulated an item called Divine Pillar, which is a skill called Firm Stance in accessory mode. And what that skill does is it halves all damage you take, but you cannot dodge. It's essentially as if we were always guarding. And one of the key points of the routes before was to max the chariot link, so we had access to that skill, which meant we had to fuse tons of personas that we didn't really need, but we had to make Futsunushi that required 5 personas. It's basically 9 because it requires Neko Shogun that requires 4 personas to fuse, so that's essentially 9 personas that was dictated by just the need of Futsunushi. But now that we could have manip the Firm Stance accessory, all of that's just gone. No need for Chariot social link anymore. No need for some of those personas, and that kind of threw the route to the blender.
I think I did the next thing there, which was that I found out how to manipulate individual encounters because I would try to grind and I kept getting single gold hands and very consistently was getting 1 golden hand, which was awful. I was losing literally 30 minutes to an hour to Mul's times because I could not get 1 gold hand. And I said, what the heck is going on? Well, turns out the RNG moves very predictably, and the way I was moving was accidentally locking myself on getting a single gold hand. So we started manipulating that, and that was like the straw that broke the floodgates at that point. And then we started manipulating skill change and other things as well. So now every
accidents
is the exact same, and you're also able to just pick the skills you want on your demons much faster.
Yeah, I remember basically using what is often called the Kaiwan trick, because Kaiwan has Tetrakarn, which is a high rank skill, and what these skill changes do is they change a skill within their own rank, so we could get lots of good stuff early on, like Repel Physical and Brave Blade.
Mm-hmm.
It's really funny when you look at the level for Brave Blade. I think the earliest a demon can get it is like 65.
I believe it's 67.
And we get it at like level 31 now.
You also force, fusion accidents as well, correct?
We don't force fusion accidents. We in theory could, but we don't really know a reason as to why we should.
Gotcha. I mean, I've heard all sorts of speculation, because as soon as you mention RNG manipulation, it starts to become a question of like, okay, what can I make happen that would otherwise be so unpredictable as to make it not worth doing in a single segment speedrun?
Mm-hmm. Nothing really. Just because we're already doing some fusion chain manipulations where the old Vita route was chaining 3 skill changes at once because it was predictable and easy. But now
How
that
did you
mention,
find that, by the way?
a lot of the stuff that I found is trial and error.
You just
There's no-
accidentally got 3 changes in a row that were perfect.
Well, no, one of them was diorama. It was from... What was it? It was from... I think it was... We changed to diorama. Then we went to trials, though, which was... that's kind of useful. And then it turned into Brave Blade, so there's just the 3 fusion chain. And oh, that works, because we're going with that. I'm satisfied. I'm not looking into this anymore.
Oh man, I remember going through sometimes on that, and like it would take 30 to 40, 30 minutes on the low end to find a manipulation that would work, and then you just have this like, okay, here's 3 fusions in a row, do it this, and then it'll work. It's like, how did you find that? Also, like lots of other little funny things. If your internal clock is between midnight and 1 a.m., that breaks the manipulation, which is always funny.
There's something so funny about that in general, given the theme of midnight television and the dark hour being at like midnight. There's just something kind of funny to me about like the significance to the speedrun being at midnight. Like you set your Vita's internal clock to midnight.
Well, the other way around, it can't be midnight.
Yeah, we try to avoid it. It's basically some sort of Persona 3 reference. In the TV listings of P4G, there's a hidden channel that only appears during that time, and you can poke Teddy there.
Yeah, and because of that, it ends up messing with the internal RNG when you boot the game for some reason. Spent a lot of time looking at the RNG in that game, I'll put it that way.
My favorite part is about our confusion was you were thinking of, hey, could the Midnight Channel Miracle Trivia Quiz have something to do with it? Because my memory card, I had done them and you hadn't.
I was trying to find anything at that point that would actually like figure out why I could not do it. I was going in and I was every single time I was getting a single gold hand and I could not figure out why. I was taking my time, I was like not doing things or whatever, but the parts that I was consistent at, I was very consistent at, just I guess a good it doesn't matter what you do once you're actually inside the dungeon, because I guess at that point it locks the encounter RNG. But I was like, I would load my save the exact same way, and I was very consistent, I guess, holding a direction while inside of the backside of the TV. And if you do that, the encounter RNG doesn't iterate, or iterates very slowly. So I never would go past it.
So something I remember that came about was, I can't remember who exactly, but they developed like a thing that, like a tool that you could run that would actually like track your RNG in game. Like how big was that?
Yeah, it was Anna Markrow who made a tool that would kind of track the RNG. It would list what fusion, what skill was going to change into what during the fusion. I never used it, but Ghoul did, so
yeah, I've used it a lot. It was really useful for figuring that out, and also just for figuring out how the game actually worked. Seeing like, it's one thing to kind of like guesstimate what's going on, but to actually visualize it is a huge difference when, it's like, oh, that's what actually is going on here. Okay. These little stars falling on the screen are calling RNG to determine where they should be. And also the TV in the bottom right corner of the loading screen apparently is checking the RNG to know what colors to turn into, which is actually a thing that happens.
Yeah, it's kind of an indicator on what the RNG is on about, but it's always not super reliable either.
Yeah, it also is a thing that like says that if your loads aren't consistent, you can't run the game, which is what ended up happening to me eventually. My PC just did not run the game consistently, and I would have loads that would be a couple seconds longer. randomly, and if that happens, the RNG would be broken. But yeah, no, there's a lot of like little cool things you could do with that tool. It was really nice for developing what the skill changes could be, and then, like I said, just understanding what was going on in the background was just massive at that point too. Kind of took our understanding of the game from about 0 to 100 overnight, which is really, really awesome.
Something I'd probably be interested to hear is like, what are some of your favorite just stories of things that have happened in speedruns of this game? Because actually, with how long the runs are, the fact that you run on high, the typical difficulty is, the hard difficulty. Like, you gotta have like just some stories of just some wild and silly things that have happened.
I don't know. The only thing that comes to mind is on the older routes, when we fought Ameno Sagiri, we were using Futsunoshi, and I had prepared a power charge Rakunda Tarukaja, and after some key moment I miss and shout the biggest F-bomb that came from the soul, and then Dark Kefka keeps reminding me of how that was so good, and this is why I got into speedrunning Persona. It's like...
Wait, you dropping an F-bomb got someone into speedrunning?
It was a powerful miss, okay?
Oh, that sounds like straight from the soul, because missing a move is so bad, especially when you're focusing like all of your efforts onto a single charge. I know, Ghoul, you have at least a couple of peculiar stories, like the fact that the 6th most viewed clip on the Limit Break channel is a fusion accident.
Fusion accident stuff ends up being very funny when it ends up happening. My favorite, one of my most randomly viewed videos on YouTube is it's titled "A Fusion Accident," where I got the fusion accident animation and then it fused the correct demon. Can happen. So it's like, oh, you fused we screwed up the wrong demon. Like Igor holds up the card and it's like, wait, that's Osei still. And then I had to do the awkward thing of is this the right Osei? Did they change the skills anywhere on accident? No, I think that's correct. I could just keep going. I just lost time randomly on an animation that I shouldn't have. Sure, we'll do that.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, especially with the full personas, because fusion accidents kind of tend to prefer the full arcana. But one of my favorite fusion accidents is back in the old days, we used to fuse Anubis with Angel, Pixie, and Slime, levels 2, 3, and 4 personas. And sometimes when that Anubis fusion accidented, it resulted in a Metatron. Almost level 90 persona. It's just, okay.
Oh boy.
I like how one of our strats for fusion accidents used to be to just rebuy the demons and refuse it if you had extra money. Rather than save and reload multiple times, because you would do chains of 7 fusions, you would just rebuy all the demons and just try again.
Yeah, it's not
I don't
really
think I ever had it where I got a
to...
fusion accident and then got a second fusion accident when I tried to refuse the same demon. I don't think that's ever happened to me. I know I've gotten it where I had 2 fusion accidents in the same fusion segment, but...
Yeah, the double fusion accident in a row is always a classic, but about the reloading, it's generally not worth it, especially if it's not that expensive of a fusion. You just rebuy things and try again.
Something I gotta ask about is, at some point, we gotta talk about the Fest story, about the secret strat that Markro found by browsing GameFAQs forums, because it's one of the greatest stories in speedrunning. I love this story so much.
Yeah, some years ago, and Markro, I guess he was strat hunting from early 2000 game FAQs, or I guess early 2010s. And he comes upon a thread by someone, I want to say it was by Don Gambini or something like that username, and he's like, hey, I skipped the the final boss by initiating the devil social link at the very last moment possible. And then the replies are, no way, that's working, you're lying, etc., etc. And, Mark Rowe, being the smart man that he is, he actually tries it, and it works. we just skipped the last few blocks of Tartarus, the final boss, entirely. Just, okay.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know, how does this actually work? Why is this a thing?
So the devil social link in the original PS2 version of the game, just Persona 3, not FES, that social link was actually a daytime social link. But in FES it was moved to nighttime, and the way you start the link is you have to give that guy money 3 times. And in FES he's waiting there every night for the money, every day. So if you gave the third money on the very final day, it would just start the link and skip a couple months ahead until the next story point, skipping entirety of Tartarus.
Yeah, so as I understand it, like you're not supposed to be able to do social links on the games the day that you're supposed to, go to the top of Tartarus and confront the final boss. But he's programmed where if you haven't started him, starting his link will end that night. And it's like, well, the game doesn't have any nights after that until the end of the game. And so it just skips all of that. And then, of course, because you can skip Tartarus, in theory, you can skip like the vast majority of the game because you never have to like build your ascent up Tartarus. It's like, I want to say the New Game Plus speedrun of 3 Fes is one of the silliest memes in the history of speedrunning, because you have, your super like optimized setup, and then you just never go into Tartarus. You just skip every single day, fight the boss at the end of the full moon, and then just skip the end of the game. And it's like an 8-hour speedrun of nothing.
Yeah, it's 8 hours of going back to the dorm, sleeping, and then one-shotting bosses with the Armageddon.
That sounds like the life.
Yeah,
it's a cozy way to spend 8 hours, I guess.
It is a way to spend 8 hours. I'll put it that way. It is just. It's very funny that like the game doesn't know what to do when you accidentally go past that day. And it's like, well, you're past that day, so the only way you could have gotten past that is to have beaten the final boss. So you must have beaten the final boss, which is very clearly not what happened.
Defeated death. We defeated death itself with capitalism.
The best part is that the social link is devil, and we give that guy money. We made a deal with the devil.
That sounds very thematically. Just that feels very SMT-esque.
Something that people that are watching this might not know: how do you prepare to do a 8, 9, 10 hour speed run? It's very different. Usually people do, I'll do a 3-hour run. Maybe if I'm a JRPG speedrunner, 3.5, 4, 4.5. An entirely different beast. What are the preparation to do such a long speed run?
Now, of course, I tend to eat before the run, do what the nature calls me to do, and just kind of relax a little bit. And then the hardest part is honestly starting the run, because I always have this question in my mind: do I really want to sit here for 8 hours? But usually it ends up yes, and then just do the run. If you're going to eat during the run, you probably want to plan some places where you can do that. Like, I don't eat during the 8-hour runs, but during my Persona 5 run, I did eat because I'm not going 16 hours without eating. And the good thing with Persona 5 is there's this massive point of nothing that you do other than basically sleep during the summer, so that's an easy part of the run to do other stuff while you're moving the character to your bed.
Yeah,
So you have all these breaks planned out? Like where, okay, if I need to use the bathroom, I can do it here. If I want to get some food, I can do it here. Like you have these like, are these in your notes? Do you have like these written down? Like, okay, 5 minutes here if I need it? Or is it just something that's like, this is usually okay here?
My notes, they are they are not very detailed, as some runners may know. So no, I do not have those there. I just do know some cutscenes that this is like 2 minutes of just holding triangle. I can go to the bathroom, etc. But nowadays, if I feel the need to go, I'll just go. I don't even wait for them because it's not that important.
Well, as I understand it, Golden has like one period of downtime where you press start on a boss, and then you get like a minute to go go do your business.
Yeah, in Secret Laboratory, there's a boss that the fastest strategy is to just straight up reflect every physical attack, and the boss only does power charge, physical, power charge, physical, so you just equip a persona that reflects it and do whatever you want during that time.
Yeah, something that I've always found kind of amusing is there's a lot going on in the run, but there's almost like a minimalistic nature to it as well, because obviously you're trying to optimize, but then like in the P4G speedrun, you're really just running with you the entire time. Like, party members are just, they don't have enough that you just want to give you as many turns as possible, and then as soon as your allies are done, like they just kind of dead and low leveled. Outside of like the first turn, they're not particularly useful.
Yeah, in Persona 4, if you fight stuff solo, you actually get 4 times the experience, so that's kind of why we grind with him only, because he's the one character that matters, he's the one that dictates the fusion levels. So what the rest of the party ends up being is basically just buff bots. They do Tarugacha, Sukugacha, Rakugacha, Rakunda. That's their whole purpose.
They do that, then they get one shot.
Like, do your thing and then get out of the way. You don't even level up their social links, so they can't even die for you.
That would be 7 ranks. It's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I tried some meme stuff in that game. I tried getting Rise social link up, saying, well, she can power charge and mind charge you. It's so broken. It's not worth it.
I do actually wonder, this is just me asking on a whim, do you know if anyone has ever tried a like max social link speedrun of any of those games?
I believe there's been a couple max social link runs for Golden. I know Emily Brooks did one of them, but I'm not sure if that was actually recorded. And then I did this thing called Most of the Stuff Percent that had max social links, full compendium, all quests, lots of stuff. And, of course, that had all social links.
Oh boy, that category name is a throwback.
So wait, did you actually fight the super boss in that too? Like, do you have to like beat the game and then restart to go fight the super boss?
No. The way that category starts is it's a new game plus, but you can actually choose to inherit nothing from the previous playthrough.
Okay.
So it's essentially a new game file, but you've unlocked the new game plus exclusive content. You can fuse the persona, you can fight the super boss.
Nice.
Okay. That makes sense.
One of the possible plans for it was to do the 2 Golden exclusive endings, but that ran into its own issues. If you start with the other ending that doesn't fight the true final boss, then I believe you couldn't fight the super boss on New Game Plus, so I thought it was just better to do it in one kind of playthrough in the end.
How long was this, by the way?
I didn't do it RTA, I did it in 2 sessions, and it was like 17 hours.
That's not bad.
Considering a 3 fast speed run, which, because of the aforementioned Tanaka strat, has been since gone to like True Ending Grand Seal, the name of like the spell you use on the final boss. That speed run is like 19 hours, so being able to do that in less than a Persona 3 speed run is pretty impressive.
I think it just goes to say how slow FES actually is.
Indeed.
So I mean, it's a lot of cutscenes, even if you're skipping them. Just like initiating that many extra cutscenes that like you wouldn't normally see is quite a bit. Like, so
yeah, it is interesting seeing kind of the evolution of this series, because the early days, it's a lot of stuff in there felt like it was reminiscent of older social sim games like Tokimeki Memorial, for instance, and kind of just the series has evolved over time. I'm interested personally to see how 3 Reload handles things, because I assume it's probably not going to be as snappy as Portable is now on its most optimized form, but games I've noticed tend to be a little bit faster than they used to be, so I'm imagining it's not going to be as bad as FES. I'm curious to see, like, do you have any interest in working on anything with the run for Reload, Mole?
Not at the moment, no. I just kind of want to beat the game casually and then see what I think.
Fair enough. Yeah,
it'll be
admittedly, a lot of people.
Like, just given that we know the length of the story in general of like 3 and like what that entails, it'd be interesting to see how much they deviate as far as like, because there are bosses in 3 that are just kind of like designed around the game's original combat system, and like if you haven't played like 3 on PS2 versus playing it on Portable, they kind of like dumb down bosses in a way to match that game's combat system, and like how, the lack of party member control, things like when you're knocked down, you like burn a turn to get back up, very frustrating mechanics like that. And obviously, if this seems like they're going to use a lot of things from, say Persona 5, obviously it's going to be a pretty big inspiration for a lot of the systems in this. How that'll translate into what they do for Reload, I'm very curious how it's going to end up turning out, both as a game and as a speedrun as well. These games have such a unique combat system.
Yeah, there's definitely been a ton of rebalancing and redesigning the Tartarus bosses.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. I think it's funny. I think all 3 of us are probably I'm assuming you're picking it up as well, Mole. I know GK has it on order for pre-order, and I've got it as well. This month is so ridiculous for video games. I'm sorry, what was that?
I think you said he's playing Game Pass.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense. It's funny, I was talking to, like, you're saying they release so many games around this time. I was talking to somebody who basically set aside time for Reload when it drops, and he's like, yeah, I'm kind of rushing through Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. It is baffling to me that like they dropped that game within 2 weeks of Persona 3 Reload, and it's both Sega games that have a surprising amount of overlap.
No, they're releasing 2 probably 100-hour JRPGs within a week or 2 of each other. There's also Grand Blue Fantasy Relink is coming out, I think, the same day as Persona 3 Reload for some unknown reason. Then there's also like Ace Attorney 4 through 6 collection just came out. Tekken 8 just came out. If you're into fighting games, Uni came out like the same day as Tekken for some reason. So there's like 2 brand new fighting games in a month. There's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as well. I don't know why every publisher decided that every game has to release in the next month, but they all decided they do.
pretty stacked time. Nice thing is plenty of 2024 to play all of them. Just have to hope that we don't just suddenly see a bunch of drops in April.
Oh, also Suicide Squad is also coming out. I don't know what Warner Brothers is thinking with that game either, but it's another game coming out.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of question marks with that game as far as I understand it.
Yeah, the only games I've basically been interested in for 2024 is the Another Code Recollection for the Switch, Persona 3 Reload.
Didn't that just come out too?
That came out this month too.
It released in January, yeah, and then there's the big one sometime during this year, the Metaphor Refantasio.
Oh gosh, that's
right.
Do we have a release date for that?
They've just said like fall 2024.
And is that a worldwide release too? Probably.
It should be.
Yep, fall 2024, and it's interesting to see how they've prioritized worldwide releases. That actually, I remember, was kind of an interesting, development when Persona 5 first came out, because Persona 5 took like 6 months between Japanese release and North American. And I think Reload is getting a global release. It's interesting to see how that's kind of shaped up over the years.
Yeah, they kind of started doing these global releases with the Shin Megami Tensei 5.
Mm-hmm.
And presumably they had some Nintendo's help with that, but then they've kind of managed to do something with Sega, I guess, to actually have the games out globally at the same time now.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a lot less text to do when it's, the second version of the game, but Royal also was a worldwide release, I believe, as well. So
it was not, actually.
It wasn't? Really? Okay.
No.
I'm misremembering then. My bad. Just spreading misinformation on the internet.
Classic.
Yeah, do you have any other, I guess, while we have a little bit of time here, if there's any questions from chat, about kind of things about Persona, either as a speedrun or just kind of in general, feel free to toss those in there. Mul, do you have any other kind of fun stories or fun things that have come up, or anything that we haven't covered you kind of want to talk about a little bit?
I don't know, I guess we were kind of light on Persona 1 and 2. That kind of tends to be the case. They're
kind of
tend to be forgotten.
As it turns out.
They really are.
But yeah.
So what are those like? I guess they're obviously very different, as we just mentioned.
Persona 1 is more of a traditional old school SMT. It's a first-person dungeon crawler, and it has the moon phase scrolling like you'd have in a mainline SMT, but it's actually got a really unique battle system. You have this grid where you fight enemies, and attacks have certain reaches on how far they can actually hit. They might hit in a line, they might hit certain tiles, but not others, etc. And turns out that for the PSP version at least, you could, in theory, manipulate the entire game.
Oh, geez. That's...
Because I believe what they do is they manipulate a Jack Frost encounter to get a Mabufu card, and then some, I think it's Pixie and Slime. No, it's Poltergeist and Slime. So they can fuse a Pixie with Mabufu, and the way Persona growth works in that game is that Pixie has this special affinity where with every rank, Pixie gets tons of extra magic attack. So in the end, Pixie just ends up being a complete powerhouse, destroying everything in her way.
I did not know that, actually. It's always funny, seeing what demons are really good in specific speedruns. Pixie being the best thing you can do is kind of wild, considering it's generally a very low-level persona or demon for people that don't know.
Yeah, I mean the level 80 pixie from Nocturne's kind of famous because I love the concept of it, of how it just fuses out of whatever whatever demon, you'd fuse down like the long line of succession from the very beginning of the game. Because like most people, if they have a demon that they've fused, they're not inclined to get rid of it. So most players will have their original pixie by the end of the game. So that was something I always found really interesting about that game.
I believe you can also get the special pixie as long as you have the demon that the pixie essentially chained into. So it's not like you have to keep it as a pixie. You can fuse it forward, but you can never dismiss it technically.
Yeah, exactly. It is funny we were talking about the simultaneous releases, because I remember, Ghoul, you were demoing Key 5 in Japanese, and we were just like getting, kind of the first impressions of the game early. There's sort of a mystique to like a game dropping in, one region before it kind of releases to the others. Like, as a longtime Pokemon fan, when I knew somebody who imported a copy of Diamond and Pearl, and just seeing this game is like, I know nothing about this game because I can't read the text, but just there's kind of like that little bit of mystique to a game that has only released in Japan at that time. We kind of don't get that as much anymore with the re-releases.
I imported P5, and I also imported Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which was actually a really fun game to try to figure out what the heck was going on and how things work. You can't. I read a little bit of Japanese, like I can I can get by talking to people on occasion, but I'm not very good at it. And especially when it's like all text and all reading, those were some wild experiences. Very fun, but very frustrating occasionally too, when you're trying to figure out why does this sometimes work and sometimes doesn't work. But like, even when I was playing that, I remember playing that and going, wow, the movement in this game is so interesting and so cool. Kind of new, even in like that early state. I think I got through 2 or 3 dungeons in Persona 5 in Japanese before kind of just waiting for the English release. And the entire time I was like, man, this is really, really interesting and really unique. And it helps that like through speedrunning it, I had a pretty big interest in like just the combat system and how that played out. So not understanding the story fully didn't, really, that wasn't a problem for me, I guess, is a pretty good way of putting it.
Yeah, Persona 5 is definitely different from the rest of the series in terms of its gameplay, because it has this 3D movement and actually handcrafted palaces, dungeons, whatever you want to call them. And the run of Persona 5 is actually really nice, in my opinion. If it wasn't such a long game, it would probably be the best run of the ones I've done, but the long cutscenes and that causes the length just kind of kills it for me.
Yeah, there's like, I don't know how much of this transferred into Royal. I think a lot of it got patched, but like the original Persona 5 on PS4, there's out of bounds tricks, there's like skips, there's all like the movement and things you do in that game. It's almost more of like an action game than it is a RPG at times. It's very, very cool. If you haven't seen it before, I'd highly recommend checking it out. I think there was even a
Persona 5 has
run.
This security alert mechanic where if it reaches 100%, you get thrown out. So that's another system that you always have to keep in mind. Hey, I can dodge the shadows in the way that they see me, but that meter also goes up. So I gotta have to balance trying to play stealthy and playing risky. But
it's even beneficial, I think, to be at a higher security rating for some things too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, if you're at 0%, it's hard to kind of dodge the shadows because you can be walking right behind them and they just do not notice that you're behind there, because the way you dodge shadows in that game is you go kind of to their aggro zone from behind to the left or right. They notice, hey, there's something here, and they start turning. Then you go to the other side and you just get past them. So doing that at 0% is a massive pain because they just do not notice you initially at all, really.
Yeah, I believe that at some point, I think in an SMT marathon, there was a Persona 5 run. Again, go check that out at some point if you haven't, because it is like, even if you have no interest in the Persona 5 as a speedrun, if you play the game casually, it's a very unique take on what playing Persona 5 can be. I guess real quick, we do have some housekeeping stuff. Submissions for Limit Break will be opening next weekend, I believe. I'll get the exact dates for y'all in just a second, which Ash beat me to it. The graphic in the bottom right. So we have game submissions open February 4th through the 18th. We're going to be opening our volunteer applications March 17th through 31st. It's also going to be the same day registration and hotel booking will go live, as well as prize submissions. As far as our COVID policy, we're going to be releasing that on February 11th. The game schedule after submissions will be coming out on March 17th, and we'll be releasing the volunteer schedule on April 28th. So all those dates are there. I believe they're all publicly available on our Discord, through our social media channels, through YouTube, through just about anything that you guys could need, but they're also right here. So get those game submissions prepped if you don't already.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as the RPG Limit Breaks podcast goes, we do have our next guest lined up, as well as our first ever bonus episode, which should be a lot of fun. Our next guest will be BizKit047, talking Kingdom Hearts and just kind of action game speedrunning in general. Should be a lot of fun. Biz is a fantastic speedrunner. Obviously been around since, a long time, basically the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2 speedrunning. And then our first bonus episode is going to be a Final Fantasy VII lore discussion. Turns out that if you get me, Heroic Spirit Gamer, and the Sid talking about Final Fantasy VII lore, we could talk for a long time. So we're having that as a little bonus episode because we thought it'd be fun to do. And that could very easily go multiple hours. So it didn't make sense to make it a normal episode of the show. So should be a lot of fun.
Yep. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank any of you who have been watching on YouTube, either on the co-stream there or the VOD. Once again, Limit Break is going to be this year, the last week of May, basically. And we're excited to show what we've been working on over the last little under a year at this point.
Mul, where can people find you if they want to, watch you do some speedruns of Persona or anything else?
I'm pretty much only active at twitch.tv/Mulsqi. I do have a Twitter, but I barely use it, so that's not a place to contact me, really. It's mostly just come to the Twitch chat and I guess the SMT/Persona speedrunning Discord, there you can easily contact me and other Persona speedrunners and, of course, SMT runners as well.
Yeah, for how long the games are, I've understood them to have pretty substantial amounts of resources if anyone's interested in running them. And despite how long they go, there are some really interesting parts to the speedruns of the games. I'm of the opinion that how long a game doesn't actually determine how good or bad a speedrun it is, beyond just, the amount of commitment that it takes. So with that, I think that will do it for today.
Yep. So again, thank you all so much for watching. Mul, thanks. You've been a fantastic guest, and we will see you all in the next one.